Today's guest helped turn Jimmy John's into a national powerhouse, and now he's building brands alongside Shaquille O'Neal. In this episode of Business Unchained, you'll learn how he scaled from 30 to over 300 locations, why most business owners get franchising wrong, and you're also going to learn what it really takes to build a mega team aimed for long-term success. He shares how to spot a winning concept, build a culture that scales, and grow a business without losing your soul. Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness. My name is Bobby Mascia, owner of many businesses, including my passion, a wealth management firm that specializes in helping entrepreneurs. My life totally changed when I made a conscious decision to design my businesses to run themselves, not me and my time. If you're looking to get unchained from your business, make more money, and have more time, listen to the experiences of other successful entrepreneurs here on Business Unchained.
Bobby Mascia is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
Please welcome the brand builder behind Crave-worthy, Gregg Majewski.
So, like most people, you tend to make a lot of mistakes in life.
No, come on. Everyone's perfect.
So parents were incredibly generous for paying for school. All I had to do was perform. And for whatever reason, I decided that I was going to go and be a college kid and get very, very stupid. To the point where my parents actually cut me off and put me on my own, and I had to figure out a way, if I wanted to go back, to pay for school and learn from there.
Stupid in the sense of like, just didn't go to school, didn't go to work, kind of tooled around, or...
It was one of those where I actually got A's on every exam and every assignment. I just didn't read the syllabus to show that I should have gone to class before my grades started to drop. So when I actually went and had the expulsion meeting at the university, they actually were throwing me out. I was done. And I had like a 0.6 GPA after freshman year. It was bad. And I went to the dean and the president of the university. I said, how are you going to throw me out? Yeah, I got A's on my exams. I just didn't need to go to class to make that happen. And the president looked at me and said, you got A's on every exam? I go, yeah, here's my test scores. I go, class was just boring. There was no reason for me to go. And he goes, well, that was dumb on your part. He goes, but I'll give you a second chance. Okay. And that sort of changed my life forever, was that moment. Yeah, I had to pay for school. Yeah, I had to work my butt off to make it happen. But that started a work ethic in me that never ended. And it was all because of my parents telling me I was done and that I was no longer getting the free ride of life. So I learned very, very early that hard work will get you to where you need to be. But if you don't put in the time immediately, you're never going to get there.
So what was it that you were focused on at that time? I mean, you usually had a pivotal moment where you turn yourself around, you start to lock in. What was the lock-in moment? Like, what was it that you had in your sights where you were like, I'm going to make this work, come hell or high water?
So it was a combination of two. I started dating my wife. Right before that, and I knew that she was gonna be the one. That was part of it, and then the other part is that I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I knew that I was always going to build something. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur from an early stage. Okay. I knew I was going to build a company, and I wasn't going to let a failure set me back from that. I also knew that I needed an education. And so if I was going to accomplish my goals, I had to at least get some sort of degree to get me to the end line. I knew I was never going to use my degree, but I wanted the best, well-rounded degree I could possibly have so I could accomplish what I wanted to in any form of business. I had no clue what I wanted to do at that point. I just knew that I was going to go and build something.
So how'd you pay for college? Did you work during school, or did you take care of that afterward?
No, I paid every semester. I worked my ass off. Odd jobs, delivery driver, worked in kitchens, bar back, bartended, sold suits, opened a liquor store in my dorm to pay for, anything that I possibly could. Worked as a houseboy in sororities to eat meals. I mean, it was bad. But again, it was... Yeah, but again, college was somewhat affordable back then. You could actually pay and work. and get through it. Now, today, it never would have happened. I would have had to take loans and everything else, and I wasn't going to get a loan because my parents had money, and they weren't going to give it to me because that was part of the deal. So I had to scrap.
Yeah, the cost of a college is higher on an annual basis than what most first out students make in their first job. It's insane.
College today is stupid. I mean, the cost to go to school is absolutely incredibly bad, and it sets up the next generation to be in debt for a long, long period of time. So after I finished, got through school, worked my butt off, I was on my way to do forensic tax accounting at Arthur Andersen. I was one of 2 hires that were going to fill this role. And out of the blue, a guy by the name of Jimmy John called me one evening. And Jimmy goes to me, answers the phone, and I forget it. He goes, "It's Jimmy from Jimmy John's." I had no clue what Jimmy John's was. There was like 20 stores at that point. Okay. None in where I was. And I'm like, "Okay, who the hell are you?" And he goes, "I want to offer you an internship." I go, "Okay, sure." And he kept going, "Seriously, I'm going to change your life." And I'm sitting there going to me, this guy's thinks an internship is going to change my life, whatever. Okay. I met with him and we hit it off, and he offered me an internship. And it was a non-paying internship, you know. Okay. I mean, it was like $7 an hour or something like that, you know. Started working, started seeing that this company had no accounting records, had no systems and procedures and stuff like that. And it was really sort of messed up in the business side. So I started just doing what I would do. Like, it was my own. I started fixing the things that I could fix, even though I was just an intern. Mm-hmm. And about a month later, Jimmy called me down to his house in Chicago, and we wrote out on a piece of paper a contract. That contract then allowed me to grow with the company, have goals, and, you know, sort of see. And he offered me the job of controller. I was 21 years old at that point.
That's a pretty big job for a 21-year-old with no experience. Yeah.
I was controller. 6 months after, I was CFO. About 6 months after that, I became COO, CFO. And then about 6 months after that, I became CEO, COO, and CFO. And we had about 30 restaurants at that point.
That is a very unusual career path to accelerate. Not an unusual career path, but the time frame in which you went from intern
nothing to everything. Yes. It was hard work. It was being in the right place at the right time. And it was taking an opportunity of the fact that I wanted the job. And that I knew where I wanted to end up.
What did you think of quick service restaurants at that time? Was that something that was in your sights, or was that something that just kind of came out of the blue?
I absolutely had no desire to work in restaurants after going through school. None. Like, no way that I wanted to do it. But I loved it. I mean, I absolutely, yeah. The amount of people, the teams, the things that you get to touch and control at that point are amazing. Mm-hmm. And there's no other industry where you're with frontline workers that way, and you're coming in contact with so many people and help them in their lives as the restaurant industry. I mean, retail has some of that and all that, but you build this team and you help this next generation sort of learn how to work. To me, it was very exciting.
Well, you could either be majorly impactful or extremely transactional. You can either have the infrastructure to put an organization in place, or you can just kind of filter through because of, the fact that most of these employees become transient, and it's like turnover central.
And that's true if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
So if you look at the great restaurant leaders that have ever been, they have built incredible teams. They've developed a culture that was unmatched. You can, see the DNA in so many different brands, from McDonald's to Dave Thomas to, even now Raising Cane's, and the culture that they're building.
Oh, yeah.
And the people that they're developing. It's part of being this, hey, I can be something, even though most people wrote me off that I could never be something. Mm-hmm. Most people that end up in the restaurant industry are because, hey, something didn't go right, or you don't think of it as your first line of work that you want to go into. And then you have people like Raising Cane's that can show that, hey, you can make a lot of money and do a lot of great things by focusing on this industry.
Well, it's amazing what a good brand can do, because even just bringing up Raising Cane's, my oldest son, he's going to be 16 in August, and he has a liver disease, a couple other issues around it. He ended up in surgery in New York, and we're in the city, and he's cleared to eat regular food, And I said, where do you want to go? I'll pick up anything you want. We can order it. We can pick it up on the way home. We can go, I don't think we should go there because you've been in the hospital for a week. Let's get you home. And he says, I can eat anything? And I said, yeah. He goes, only Raising Cane's. What? Of all things? He's like, yeah, I've heard so much about it. I've never been there. I want to go. And when we got there, it was, it's amazing what a good brand can do to draw the right people.
When you catch lightning in a bottle, you can do incredible things in this industry. And Jimmy John's at that point was catching lightning in a bottle. It was an absolute amazing opportunity and an amazing way to, push something forward. We were doing something with sandwiches that was different. We delivered. And at that time, there was only two foods that really delivered in America, pizza and Chinese. Yep. Those are your two options. Nothing else delivered. And so
when was this chronologically in the life of
that would have been in 1998 that I got to Jimmy John's.
All right.
But again, Jimmy had been delivering for years, and that was sort of his mantra. But at that time, it wasn't national. It wasn't that. We just had something that we thought was different. And Jimmy had a personality and a dynamic that sort of allowed him to get people like me to believe where we were going to go. He gave us the opportunity. And then he sort of let us run with it, which is sometimes the best leadership in the world is when you put people that are above where they should be. They're going to outwork everybody else because they got to prove that they belong.
Oh, yeah.
And so the entire Jimmy John's team were young individuals that were given opportunities bigger than them, and we all had to come together to sort of make it work. And it was a miracle to watch as this team developed and pushed and believed we could change the industry, which we did. Now, you wouldn't have third-party delivery if it wasn't for Jimmy John's. We changed the fact that restaurants now all think they can deliver a product. Now, all restaurants should not deliver a product. It's impossible to deliver some things. It changed the industry. And we went on an exponential growth that was unheard of.
How do you think you did that? What do you think was the driving force behind that?
We wanted our franchisees to make money. How simple of a concept was that? Most franchisors tend to make bad decisions and franchisees' bottom line gets hurt. Here, we wanted to make sure our franchisees made more money. We took the complete opposite approach. If we allowed them to make as much money as they possibly could, they would then open up another store faster. Another store and another store. Simple. Wow. Mind-blowing. It wasn't really mind-blowing. It was the fact, though, that somebody in a team believed that the franchisees had to win. And that's not common in this industry.
What were the things that you guys did to make them as profitable as they needed to be to make more pop up?
So we always invested back in them. We did challenges to raise top line sales. We made sure food costs didn't go. And for a long time, we kept build out costs down and wanted to make sure that the return on investment was extremely good. We also didn't overpopulate territories, which was also something that most franchisors tend to do. They tend to overbuild and shrink the DNA because as long as top line is growing, they're making more money.
Making their rep. Yep.
We did the complete opposite. Let's not open up as many restaurants in an area. Let's let them make huge returns. And then in turn, they'll go to another market and grow. And those are things that at that point were different. We also took the gamble to go completely outside of the realm of where we wanted to go. We expanded the territories. We allowed people to build in bigger points, and we invested back in them. We gave them operators. So when an investor would come in, we would give them one of our operating partners to go and run that restaurant with them and make sure that we were able to grow that brand because we knew that the operator was incredible or kick-ass. We knew that he built our culture, believed in our culture, and so there was no training in that sense. We put people in there with operating partners. Which was also unheard of in the industry at that point.
So what are some of the things that you learned along that process that really kind of put Jimmy John's in the seat that it got to when it finally found an exit, and it's a huge name now, Inspire Brands owns it? Yep. What were some of the things that you guys put in early on? Or what were some of the mistakes that you made? What were some of the things that you learned along the way?
The more that we learned was that you had to believe in your people and that you had to believe in the fact that stay true to who you are. A restaurant that everyone thinks is extremely difficult. Restaurants aren't harder than any other business as long as you stay disciplined and have the systems in place to do so. Most restaurants have some systems, but they don't have everything detailed, so you get in. So one of the things that I learned from Jimmy was, would you get on a plane without a pilot going through his checklist? You know, as stupid as that sounds, we all would absolutely not get on a plane if the pilot didn't follow the checklist. Why should any other industry or business be any different? Would you walk into a doctor if you didn't follow a checklist? Would you want him to go through the diagnostics of what could be wrong with you to make sure you were right? We implied that same thing into the restaurant industry. So basically, Jimmy came from a engineering manufacturing family. I came from a manufacturing family. And so we took the systems and procedures of that world and sort of layered them into restaurants to build that brand to a point where it was dummy proof for someone to come in. If you weren't trained, you could open up our opening procedures and get through and open the restaurant to be able to serve that day because everything was spelled out step by step on what you should do. And we went into so much detail that there was never a gray area. And if something went wrong, we looked at the system to find out if it was a system failure or if it was an operator failure. If it was an operator, we rechanged. If the system was wrong, we fixed the system. And as we did that over every store, our systems became so tight that we were able to focus on what mattered, which was outside marketing, which was, you know, getting into the communities and building top line sales because our stores were operating at such a high level.
What did you have in place in order to determine when something wasn't going right?
I mean, sales was always the number one thing that you could see. If a store at that point wasn't growing, you knew something was wrong because we were growing at such a rate that it was 10% or more every year, every store. So it was simple to see when we had a bad operator or something like that. It was just, again, we offered something so different in the community that we could have exponential growth year over year because no one else was doing what we were doing, which is, again, delivery, which is simple. You know, it's taken for granted today, but back then it was so different. And then off the record, we would never say it, but we had 5-minute delivery times. We pushed for our food to be out the door in less than 5 minutes to a consumer in 10. If we advertised that, we would have been sued off the world. But again,
Domino's, I think, had a big problem with that because they had drivers that were rushing and they started getting into accidents and it became this whole thing, right?
Correct. Yep. And so that was our focus. We can make a sandwich in 15 seconds. There was no reason why the consumer couldn't have it in 7 minutes. And we kept delivery time short. We became a trust cycle in a consumer's life where they knew that they could get us in a time when they needed it and we filled the void.
So you kind of accelerated your role within Jimmy John's and the brand was growing. So what was kind of like the life I don't know, what was life like when you were working there?
I mean,
how long were you there for? What was the whole experience?
It was 6 years, and then sat on their advisory committee and all that. It was the fastest pace. We were a small team. It flew by instantaneously. It was an incredible time. Up until Craveworthy, I haven't had as much fun working as I had during that window of time, because we got to do everything. We got to touch every aspect. We got to build and grow at a speed that was unheard of, but also with a group that all wanted to do the same thing. We all believed we were going to leave a mark on this industry. And I get asked that all the time. How can a restaurant leave a mark? And it's the things that we did. I mean, we made so many millionaires at Jimmy John's. And, you know, that was sort of a joke with us at the beginning, but we wanted to change people's lives because we made them operating partners. We got them into partnerships where they can own stores, you know, all this. We wanted to create millionaires, and we all believed that that's what we were doing. And that just made it so much fun to see a franchisee succeed or see one of our GMs go and become an operating partner for a franchisee down, you know, in a different city. We took so much pride in that little fact that it was the best time we could have ever had.
That's awesome. So you had this culture that you had in place, right? You had this idea, all of these processes to help the idea come to life. You had franchisees that were making money. The stores were growing over 10% a year. And Was that just the exit, just something that came out of nowhere, and you guys started to look at, okay, how do we put this thing together? Or was that something that you guys were shopping at the time where you said, I think now is a great time to find a bigger partner?
So I technically left right before that.
Okay.
So I wasn't around for the exits. But we were continually building because we knew that we needed capital to go at the speed that we wanted. So from day one, we were standing up the company so we could have that. And then the number that Jimmy supposedly got when he sold was the highest restaurant sale, at that time for a brand that size. With inflation and everything else, it'd be Jersey Mike's money.
I was just about to say, it's crazy because Jersey Mike's is one of the biggest exits too. So you got two sandwich guys that are sitting at the top of the heap.
But again, they built cultures. Both of them built these incredible cultures that their franchisees were successful. And if your franchisees are successful, your business is worth a hell of a lot more than if your franchisees are struggling.
So you left. What were the major things that you learned that pushed you into the next venture?
So that I wanted to do it on my own, that I wanted to 100% be my own boss, that I wanted to control my destiny wholly. That I operated Jimmy John's as it was my own, even though it never was. But I operated like it was my money being invested day in and day out. So I knew that in that entrepreneurial spirit, that's exactly what I was. And so then I started to lay the foundation of building my company. At that time, I started opening up Jimmy John's. I was a consultant for everybody in the industry. I helped build 2 other companies of significant size because the founders asked me to be the Jimmy Whisperer is what it was called, to them. And then I just decided out of the blue, I was bored and I wanted to create the next sort of Rourke capital, which is what Craveworthy is sort of modeled after, except that we wanted to be operators and not just investors in the businesses that we tackle.
How much time before you found yourself bored when you were doing the consulting, when you were helping to build the 2 businesses?
So, during that time, I got up to almost 500 other restaurants in my portfolio. So I was happy. I just was missing something. I wanted to do the creating part. I designed over 200 restaurants for people, put them into business. And
now, are these all branded restaurants, or with these?
Some are one-offs and 2s, 3s. Some were brands now. But again, I just knew that my passion was in this creating component, but it was also building a team and a culture. And that's the part that sort of continued to eat at me, that I wanted to build something and leave a legacy for my friend or my family, but more importantly for the industry, that if you continue to do it the right way, you can change the dynamic of where you can be. So one of my old Jimmy John's guys actually convinced me to do this, is that he gave me a coaching tree for all the people from Jimmy John's and that are all over the industry of people's lives that we touched.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I said, what's the point of this? And he goes, Greg, your skill was the fact that all of these people are only successful because you believed in them and gave them a chance and helped them sort of grow. And he goes, you need to do this again, not just for you, but for the fact that everyone of these people's lives are better because you helped build something and installed something, and then that they went on to bigger things. So I have a mantra in my company. I want my team to always grow. And we joke about it all the time, but I don't want people to stay with me forever. If you're staying with me forever without moving up, then I failed you. My job is for you to find your next best thing. I need to train you, installing things in you, and get you to the next level.
So what does that look like in your 4 walls? Somebody comes in, like how does that really feel? What's the environment that you've really created to help them the bigger picture of life? It's
a belief in that if you sort of buy in now, we install in you. And it's hard to describe how you do it. It's leading by example. It's going in and showing them. It's constantly giving them the motivation, the tools to succeed. It's pushing them continually forward where you need to go. It's pushing them the same way we were pushed at Jimmy John's, further than what they're accustomed to, because people tend to get comfortable in their own sort of world. And if you push them outside of their box and push them to the next step, they tend to rise to that. and want to
Keep them out of
continue to grow.
complacency.
Yeah, but most people get complacent. They're living, their life is going by, and they don't think about what's next. Your job as a great leader is you've got to continue to push those people up the chain to where they can no longer go. At one point, they're going to be too far. And then you've got to put them somewhere else, and it's time for them to leave the company and hopefully go somewhere else. But it's your job to continue. If you keep one person as our GM or assistant manager for 15 years, you failed that individual. Doesn't matter how successful he is at that one restaurant. If you're not pushing him to the next great thing, then you're not teaching him how to live or have the tools in life. And that's really been the DNA of what I've done my entire career, is that I continue to build that. And when people start seeing that happen, they start to believe in what you're trying to build. And so it's hard when people have to leave you because you invest all this time and money and everything else, but people have to leave. Because you have no more opportunity for them. So, for example, right now, I'm the CEO of my business. There's no one that can replace me today. I'm not leaving. But I have people underneath me that want to be president and CEO one day. It's my job to get them ready for that job. And if I don't have the spot, help them find that great opportunity somewhere else where they can go and achieve where they should be. And in turn, they'll go there. Then what magically happens is that when I put out a note or say I'm looking for someone from that left me will say, oh my God, you got to go and take that job. He will get you to where you need to be. Believe in him and follow him. And my culture continues to grow through the industry.
Now, how do you find most of these people? Is it all through that type of referral of people who say?
Yep. I don't typically ever have to put a help wanted ad up for people on my team. I sort of send it out to my network or people who used to work at me and say, do you guys have anybody? And instantly people come in. We don't lose people very often because of that. Now, you make bad hires, and that's always the biggest mistake that someone can make, is that when you bring someone in that doesn't fit your culture, you got to be quick to rip it out because your culture is your DNA of the business, especially in the restaurant industry. If you don't have that right people on the bus can be destroyed by one individual, so you have to make sure that you continually have the right people on the team. But it's also why we tend not to bring people in that haven't been referred to us or worked for somebody that we know, so we know who they are a hell of a lot more than what they're not. And do you make mistakes doing it? Absolutely. I've made mistakes, bad hires, but you got to be quick to get rid of them so they don't destroy that culture. And that's in any company. It's not just restaurants. It's any business. The culture and the DNA of what that business is more important than everything else. And I know people make fun of today saying family. You work in that family environment and you're treated like family. But yet, it's still, you have to be treated with a level of respect and a path where you think you're getting something more than what your job is. And that's a job of great leaders and great culture in a business.
I've always said we're like a family. And I had heard somebody who had said, this to your point, making fun of that family atmosphere. And, their argument to that was, sometimes family doesn't get along. Sometimes, family isn't a good thing. Perhaps using the word team, because in a team, you always have to lift each other up to win the game, to win the season, to do better. And I was like, you know what, that's interesting, because I always looked at family as that warm feeling of we have your back. And I guess it's because I come from an Italian New Jersey family. It's just like, you don't have a choice but to take care of your blood. But you're right. There's some people who just, they poo-poo on that idea.
Especially the new generation. I mean, and we see the TikToks and all that, and you see them, joking. They don't want to be part of that. The new generation that's coming out now doesn't think being in the office is important, thinks they can learn everything on their own, thinks that the job is just a means and doesn't really want to invest in it. And what they're missing out on all of that is that all of those things will get you to the next point. If you come into the office and learn from somebody who's above you, your skill set's going to improve faster and you're going to be able to get to where you want to go if you actually put in the time. If you believe and actually think that you can do more, there's an investment, and then your quality of life continues to improve. And now they talk about all the time, my quality of life has to be X amount of social time and less work time. But then they look at what they want to actually do with their life, and they don't realize that you need some of the other to get to the other point. So find the right spot where it's a hell of a lot of fun doing it, where you don't feel like you're working. And that's sort of what we tell our team on a continual basis. If you feel like you're going into work and it's a chore to go, you're in the wrong job. If you walk in and you feel a sense of pride and that you're happy to be there and it makes you have fun and your day goes by fast, you're doing something that you actually enjoy doing, that's somewhere where you want to be. And if you're not finding that spot day in and day out, then you need to find a new spot, and a new place to be.
Yeah.
The new generation, though, thinks it just magically happens.
Well, and what I find interesting is you can learn a lot from reading, from watching, from observing. But there's no better teacher than pain of having to kind of figure it out. Because that's the type of thing that kind of, I would say, increases your ability to be strategic in nature and really start to identify, all right, if this goes wrong, how do we do things to overcome it? I think a lot of that is also missed. With technology, where it is. Do you see that in your space as well?
Yeah, I mean, you learn from the failures in life. Not every restaurant is going to be successful. You're going to open up a bad store. You're going to hold on to one longer than you should because it was your baby. You didn't want to have the failure mark.
Are there any moments in your career that you can look back to say that point of failure was like a pivotal moment where you shifted and really made a difference, or do you kind of see it more fluid?
So, I mean, I think I see it more fluid, but I did all of those things. I held on to a restaurant way too long because it was my baby. It was the first one I designed on my own, and it was bad location from the beginning. A grocery store was supposed to be my anchor tenant behind. They never built. I was in a field by myself, and I held on to it because of pride. I lost so much money on this damn deal, but I refused to close it because it was important to me.
Yeah.
And what I ended up learning in that experience was the fact that it's okay to fail. It's one mark against you. It's the quality of everything that you're going to have. Everybody has a setback and something doesn't work. There's other ones where I've bet on the wrong people, and that I've held them longer than I should. And I allowed it to eat my culture a little bit. And before I was able to pull the plug on them, it's also taking wrong gambles on businesses that I've acquired. What Craveworthy does today is a bet. We bet on businesses that have sort of gotten started, or we start our own, but we gamble on something. We think we see something that may be there. And then when we actually get in, we're like, oh crap, this wasn't what we thought it was.
So let's jump into Craveworthy, because we got introduced through Bennett Maxwell, and Bennett was on season 1, Dirty Dough. And when he was sitting here talking about it, he was super pumped, told us the story about how he went viral and created really a community around what he was doing because of competition that came in and tried to bully him. And next thing you know, he's part of your brand. Let's get into Craveworthy a little bit. What are some of the things that when you built this thing, took a little time off? You were, in your own words, you started to get bored. Tell me about the creation of this. Where did it all come from?
So after I left Jimmy John's, I had every, obviously, PE company out there want me to run their restaurants. Never wanted to do it, so I did my own thing. And then one of my friends started a incredible restaurant company. Food was great, brand was great, and he got this investment from a PE group. And the PE group, about 4 months after he bought it, shut down all the restaurants and closed the brand. And they did it because they had a competitor in another fund that they were building, and they thought he was going to be competition. And so instead of allowing his brand to grow, they squashed a little guy early on. And so I got so pissed at that moment, I decided that I was going to create the home for emerging brands to be able to grow and fight the big boys and get to scale before they could hurt. And that was sort of why I started Craveworthy. I knew that I could take emerging brands. I've done it multiple times at that point. I knew I could create brands. So I'm like, I can do this. I also knew that Rourke used to do this at the beginning where they'd invest in the operators and sort of build these brands up and then sell them to someone bigger. That was the perfect sort of benchmark for where we were. So that's sort of how Craveworthy got started.
Did you have any brands early on in your sites that you wanted to start with, or were you just like, this is the idea, let's go find some?
So, I mean, at that point I had created, like I said, over 200 brands for other people. So I knew brands inside and out. I knew which ones I liked that I created. So I started going back to the ones that I had connections with. I knew at that point that I needed, though, a bigger infrastructure to be able to do what I needed. So in 2019, the group that sort of finally convinced me to create the structure and go, and I were out looking. We found a company called Mongolian Concepts, and we put an offer in on them in 2019. We lost that offer to somebody else, and the deal was going to close in early 2020. COVID happened. The deal fell through. They never got the document. In March of then in November of 2020, I went back to them and said, hey, you know, obviously you guys are struggling. You didn't get the sale done. How about I come in for an equity piece and, you know, I run the business and sort of get it through, but I want an option to buy it if I can fix it. And they're looking at me at that point, are you nuts? Why would you want to do this? The world's ending and all this. And by March of 2021, we came to a deal and I became CEO of Mongolian Concepts. And the whole idea behind that is that I needed a big enough book to help pay for the G&A that I needed to create the rest of Craveworthy. And so I knew what I was doing at that point. It didn't matter if those concepts were going to be great and if those 3 brands that were part of that were going to survive. I needed the income and the G&A to do where I wanted to go and build. So that was March of 2021 that I started. In December, December of 2022, I announced the formation of Craveworthy, or January of 2022. So I fixed that. I started acquiring other brands quietly. In between the time that I took over Mongolian Concepts and that, started building my portfolio without anyone knowing what I was doing. And then in January of 2023, we announced Craveworthy, brought in the first set of brands. The idea behind that was give these emerging brands an opportunity to grow and have a shared service platform that allowed them to have incredible talent up here that they couldn't afford down here, because most emerging brands, G&A is what breaks them. They can't afford a CFO. They can't afford a CMO. They can't afford someone who's done it in the industry. They're just getting by on their own. So we provide all those shared services up here, give them the playbook, give them what we've done in our past and how we would go about tackling it and build those brands up. That was in January of 2023. We had 0 of everything. 29 months in now, we're 19 brands, 300 plus locations, and over 300 million in system-wide sales. So not a bad short little jump, with Dirty Dough being part of it.
Very cool. And what was step number 1? I mean, you said you had to get the right team, right? What was... So
the first step was actually hiring my senior VP of Ops was my first hire. Again, as we've talked about earlier, comes from a network of individuals. So somebody from my Jimmy John's arm worked with her in the past. I never worked with this individual. And said, Gregg, she's everything that you are, heart, soul, belief. You got to interview her. She's in Dallas and all that. So I went down, I met with her. We actually interviewed in a Jimmy John's. Of all places that we decided that we were going to meet, we're sitting in the back room of a Jimmy John's in Irving, Texas, and we talked for like 3 hours. And I knew that she was going to be the one that was going to help me build, because her culture and DNA that was the first component of who we hired. And then it continued to sort of add layers on that team. We brought in Kirk, we brought in Kristen, we brought in a marketing team, and then start layering in that infrastructure to get the place where it needed to be, people who wanted to prove themselves in this industry.
So culture, people, and processes seem to be at the top of your list.
It's the only thing that matters.
How do you identify the next brand to purchase? Do they have all 3 of those elements, or do you find that there's where do you find the opportunity? How do you find the right next fit?
So, I mean, we can use Dirty Dough as an example. Bennett, big personality, everything else. We look for things that need help or are missing a component that we offer. So are they running tight systems and procedures? Are their franchisees growing? Is there room or white space in the segment for us to be and grow the brand? I don't care what the culture is. I don't care about anything of that. I bring all that. We put our culture in, and it takes time, anywhere between 6 and 24 months to turn a brand around and put the DNA that we want in them. But I want an excitement of the idea behind the segment that they're in. And so with Dirty Dough, you had Crumble, but you really didn't have a number 2 competitor. You know, Crumble was running away with it. They were the only game. Could someone else come in and be the dessert concept behind Crumble? We knew we weren't going to catch Crumble. They were, already way above. But could we be that number 2 brand and then pivot to CPG and everything else and grow the brand to something special over that time? That's what excited me about Dirty Dough.
So along the way, it seems like you made a couple of mistakes. You've kind of worked through them. You've got this crave-worthy. You're trying to help other people fix their mistakes by acquiring them, putting the right processes in place. What do you see for the future of this thing?
So when we started, we said we were going to be $1 billion company, and that's what we're going to be.
How far off are you from that?
So we're 29 months in. We're at 300 million. So, I mean, not too bad. We're on pace and we should get there. But again, that was the goal. And so as a company, your biggest thing, or as a leader, you got to set your goal. And people say, make goals realistic. I set a 5-year goal to be $1 billion company, knowing that if we hit $1 billion, we were booming. It's like everything went perfect. Probably not going to fully happen. If we get to 600 million, we were killed it in 5 years. But I had to set a goal so big that the team that I was building had something to overachieve and push, because no one believes you're going to get there. And so my entire team, when you ask them, what's our goal? It's to be $1 billion company, in 5 years. We all marched to that goal. Yeah. And that's what sets the desire and the drive. That's where we're going to be.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. So if you're going to leave our audience that's here thinking about franchising, they're in a franchise, they want to be a franchisor, what are, maybe 3 or 4 tips that you would give them that you've learned along the way that they should keep top of mind?
So first and foremost, believe in the leadership team. They matter way more than the product that you're getting involved in. So if you don't think the leadership team knows what they're doing, believes in you, is willing to invest back in you, it's not the right brand for you. That's 1. 2, make sure that your territories are defined enough where you protect yourself, because a franchisor tends to want to put other stores around you. Make sure your territories, when you define them, locks you into a winning formula where you're protected so they can't cannibalize you. And 3, find a segment that's not going away. Hotter ones tend to be flashes in the pan. So if you're just getting in, I wouldn't tell you to go cookies, because dessert tends to be one that is very cyclical. Dessert is a great second bet. Find something that's going to last the test of time, a mainstay, as your first investment, then go to the other ones after that once you become successful. And also, do not grow outside of your core DMA. Just because you have a great brand and you're doing well in Frisco or Dallas, don't go from Dallas to New York because that's the only opportunity left. Stay where you can have economies of scale with your leadership, your accounting, and your team, so you can make the most money in your defined territories.
You bought Shaq's brand, right?
Yeah. So we are partners now with Shaq, which is incredible. That was one of the probably coolest moments when I met him in New York after we bought that one. He walks up and just gives me a big bear hug and says, we're going to kill it. Which was just everyone in the lobby's walking, and here's Shaq walking through the lobby coming up to me. And I'm not a small guy, but yet next to him, I'm a midget.
How did that come about?
This one, we decided that it was okay just having management control of this brand. And we're the largest cash investor. But now getting to work with Shaq, being involved with him, the doors that sort of has opened has
That's
been
pretty cool, right? So let me ask you a question. You have a company like that, Big Chicken. You're saying, hey, listen, ultimatum, dude, take me off the board or give me a bigger seat at the table. What are the things that you need to do when you walk through a door to kind of capture the ownership of that, meaning the ownership of the operations, like what are the first things that you do when you walk through that door?
It's to shut up and evaluate. The worst thing that you can do in that situation is come in and say you know best without actually spending the time learning what they do. And so the first step is watch, learn, and then you start tweaking their systems to get them into your playbook. Your goal is always to put them into the playbook that have rolled out to so many restaurants. That's where we're going to end up. But it's first you got to understand their DNA, their culture, and then work from there. So
do you fix things in the moment, or are you just like, or is there like a time period where you're like, we're going to at least evaluate this for X period of time?
It depends on the brand. So like I was more in tune to Big Chicken than I was most that I come into. So we were able to act faster. Normally we say it's between 6 and 24 months to roll out everything that we want to with a brand after we bring it in. In Big Chicken's world, because I had already been in that DNA and knew it, we're rolling out menu changes within 4 months, which is faster than I've ever done. We're getting advertising right and all that within 6 months. But that's because I've been in tune to it and I knew what it needed. It was a lot easier. Dirty Dough, it will be 2 years to get everything to where I want it to be. And unfortunately, some of those franchisees will not survive because we couldn't operate fast enough to get the metrics to where I wanted it. It just needed too much of a lift. But we told them that up front. I wanted to put them in those locations. You can't be absentee owners. My first meeting with those franchisees, I told them half of you were closed. They all thought I was nuts. It was like the worst thing you could tell somebody.
Yeah.
But it was also stop bleeding, get out. And I didn't do that to be mean. I couldn't fix. You can't fix everything. And so one of the lessons is, hey, fix the box. That takes time, but do it right. Don't try to just throw stuff at it where it's not the right fix long term. So with Dirty Dough, we're rolling out and testing dirty donuts and dirty drinks and dirty ice cream and all these other things that we're rolling out to make sure we're the right brand so we can carry forward. That does not mean that it will ever get to the point where these stores are doing $1 million because they're bad locations, absentee owners, and there's no real sense of ownership in a lot of those locations.
Yeah, that's tough. What are some of the bigger things that you see that most franchisors maybe fail at or don't really seem to grasp? When they're going to market, they're finding these franchisees to come in and run their brand or run different stores under their brand.
The biggest thing for me is that I'm an operator. And so we operate everything that we own. We have corporate restaurants. So we're in tune to what we're doing and how it affects them. Because I'm an operator and because of the culture standard, I spend a lot more time getting to know the franchisee than most people. Most people, it's a financial decision to sell. I look at, hey, can I go see their restaurants? Can I go see their other businesses? Can I talk to people that work with them? Do they have that instinctive? Are they willing to learn and not just stick in their own ways? I vet the person more than the financial opportunity because I look at them as my partner, not just a store. And that partnership has to fit. They got to be someone that I would want on my team and that I would hire normally. So
do you look at certain prerequisites?
I mean, obviously, you always look. There's financial prerequisites that you look at that you got to be qualified. Those are the easy ones. The other one is, do they have the heart and soul? And that's not really immeasurable. You got to get to know the person. And it's just like when you interview or bring someone onto your team, we do that same vetting process that we do there with the franchisee. And we've turned down people that are incredible operators for other brands, but that just weren't the right fit for me. And
what about people who are not coming from a QSR background? What about
they're
somebody
actually the best people?
Yeah,
because they have no bad habits. So they don't know how to operate a restaurant. So you're able to put in, and they go through your training, you're able to put them into the systems, procedures, how you operate, how you're supposed to do it. So they only know the one way. Those are the best people to have.
So they're like young with rose-colored glasses. They're like the young people that you find out of college that you, to your point, you give them the opportunities. They grow into their shoes as opposed to finding somebody who's a veteran, in the space and already has these
especially on the emerging brand side. Now, once you get to an established brand, those multi-unit, those guys that have been doing it are very important to you. But in that emerging setup, you want the people that you can get to buy into the culture and the DNA of where you're going and will operate just that way, because it's so important that it's all operating right. And that was one of the things that Jimmy John's was so good at. We gave those first-time operators, when they did, we put one of our operators with them, so they had that. And that's the same things that we're doing here.
It's interesting you say that, because I don't know if you know any of my background, but I come from a QSR family. And after my dad passed, I ended up buying the stores from my mother and doing a whole reorg restructure. We're actually buying into 2 Jimmy John's because they're part of Inspire Brands. But one of the things that when we had tinkered with Sonic a long time ago was there were other Dunkin' franchisees that were getting involved, and there were other brand owners that were getting involved, and it was a smaller, more tight communicating community because we were over here on the East Coast. We were the first ones to kind of bring it over, and it's an Oklahoma City, very Midwestern brand. So we were constantly talking to one another, and it seemed like every single franchisee was trying to take the existing brands that they were already working with and use those processes in place of the Sonic processes, because they knew what they knew. Almost like if you were to say, us as Dunkin' owners, we were trying to Dunkinize the Sonic, and there were a lot of people who failed at that because they came with their own habits, whether bad habits or good habits in their existing brand, but just bad habits in the new brand. And that becomes impactful because it tarnishes the brand a bit, right?
It destroys
if you're not
it.
delivering.
Each brand has their own DNA and rules. You got to operate the brand based on that. That doesn't mean that the basis of those systems have to deviate much. How you clean a bathroom is how you clean a bathroom. How you mop the floor is how you mop the floor. How you greet a customer is how you greet a customer, that level of service. But yet that DNA of that brand is so important, that culture is. And so we joke on the Jimmy John side, I'm still a franchisee, that the Dunkin' people have tried to push all their stuff into Inspire, and now Inspire is sort of and screwed up a little bit because you got Dunkin's culture, and it's a completely different culture than the Jimmy John's culture. And they go like this until they find a way. What we're doing that's different is we're taking those cultures before they become so powerful, and we're putting these brands all together so we work as one. You could not do it any other way.
So do you do a lot of speaking, a lot of social media? How can people find you if they're thinking about either selling their brand or if they think that they want to reach out and just kind of pick your brain?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Gregg Majewski, social media, all of that, Instagram, go to craveworthybrands.com. We have a podcast called Rooms for Seconds, where we're constantly talking to other leaders in the industry about how to build their, not just industry, we've had Ndamika Sue and some other athletes and stuff on, just about leadership and building what's important to have the right pieces in place. And then again, anytime you have a question about anything in this industry, I'll answer anything.
Hey guys, Bobby Mascia here. If you've been listening to Business Unchained, you know we're creating conversations that matter, real stories and strategies to help business owners and entrepreneurs win. We've been putting a lot of work into these episodes in our online community, bringing you content that can actually move the needle for your business. And we're everywhere: Instagram, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, TikTok, you name it, we're there. So look, if you're getting value from what we're doing, please follow, subscribe, and drop a quick comment or like. It really helps us grow this thing. Just search Business Unchained and you'll find us everywhere.